Thank you.
Okay, doesn't sound like it announced it, but we are recording.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And welcome everyone to our first meeting of 2021. I am still wrapping my head around what that means. When I look at dates, I don't know about you, it takes me about a month to get into the new year, usually that way. But I hope you all also had a safe and restful holiday and are ready to go in this new year. We have a gigantic agenda today, much information to share, so I'm not going to belabor it with too many additional announcements, but I did want to do a few items related to our meeting. As you can see, we're now in a Zoom meeting environment, and we're trying that out. We're hopeful that this will be easier for you as you work to join with us, but do let us know if this new format causes any issues for you. I wanted to let you know a few of the meeting logistics. You've all been placed on mute, so the way that you can communicate with us is that you can type questions into the chat box. Those chat questions go to everyone. I just wanted to let you know that, so that as you're typing your questions, everyone will be able to see them, and we will certainly screen the questions as we go and try to get to them all. But if time constrains us, or if you have a question that comes to your thoughts later on in the meeting, please know that we'll take a look at those questions after the meeting ends and be sure to answer them as well. Also, if you have any additional questions, there'll be a link to the meeting video sent out so you can reach out to the presenters as you feel the need arises. Certainly also, as always, feel free to reach out to my staff and myself whenever you have questions, comments, or ideas. Bernadette and Dana are there to serve you, and I try to make myself as available as possible as well. Our contact information is on the slide that you're looking at so that you can reference it at any time after the meeting that you need to. Also, I know that most of you know how to get to us if you need to, so that's great. All right, I am not going to read the agenda because, as I said, there are lots and lots of things happening in the next couple of hours, and so I'll introduce them as we go. But you have access to the agenda as well. If you're monitoring your time availability and are dropping in and out, you're certainly welcome to do that also. So first up, we hear from Ann Larimore of University Accounting and Financial Reporting. It's really always interesting to hear about policy changes that she brings to us, but I'm very intrigued today to hear about what she has to share with us about the robotic process automation as well. So Ann, take it away.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen now and let me know if you guys can't see it. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, Ann.
Okay. So hi, I'm Ann Larimore. Not like Gloria was saying, I'm here to talk about policy updates and RPA updates. They're kind of two separate things that I'm cramming all into one presentation. So our agenda today is, we recently finished updating section 13 of policy. So I was going to go over the 4 sections of section 11 that we recently updated, give you an overview of those and what we updated with them. We're going to discuss upcoming policy updates that we're hoping to make soon, and then do a total 180 and talk about the RPA bot update that we are working with AITS on. So to get started, I'm actually going to go to the policy itself and just kind of walk through it and talk you guys through it. Feel free to send messages and ask me questions. Hopefully, let me make this a little bit bigger so you all can see it. I'm going to start with section 11.4, relinquishing gifts to an external institution. So this policy is to provide information for if an employee was provided gift money or gift assets by an external institution in order for him or her to pursue their scholarly activities like the research. And then if that employee leaves the University of Illinois to go work at a different institution, this policy provides guidance on the requirements that must be met in order to relinquish that gift money to the next institution. So for example, if you hire Professor Smith to your department and he's given $100,000 from Google to pursue his research, He then decides to leave the University of Illinois and go work for another institution like the University of Wisconsin. This policy gives guidance on what conditions must be met before that $100,000 from Google can be given to the University of Wisconsin for him to continue his research. So it identifies different types of relinquishment requests. So you can see here in the procedures, we have 3 different types. We have the relinquishment of money, so gifts, actual dollars, cash money, relinquishment of assets purchased from a gift fund, and then relinquishment of assets donated as a gift in kind. And then under each of these sections, it clarifies the requirements that must be satisfied in order for that relinquishment to occur. It also points you all to the proper property accounting policies for the assets purchased from a gift fund or assets donated as a gift in kind. And it directs you to a new job aid that we created, this relinquishing money from gift fund to external institution, to provide clear guidance on logistical steps to properly relinquish that gift money or those assets. Any questions? And I'm not sure if I'll be able to, so if any pop up, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on to our other sections that we've recently updated. So just to hop around here, the next section we updated was 11.6, is accounting for fundraising and development expenses. So in 11.6, this whole section was created because to make sure that units are properly classifying and accounting for their fundraising and development expenses. And we do that for twofold: to allow analysis and evaluation of those fundraising and development expenses. So we track those, we send them to the foundation, and they are analyzed. And then also to ensure that those expenses are properly excluded from the indirect cost study. So in the procedures, there's 4 sections, if you can see my screen. So the first section goes over what is fundraising and development expenses. It gives you some examples, such as expenses for direct mailing, which solicit donations. The second section goes over what would not be considered or classified as fundraising and development expenses. So, for example, expenses to publish a monthly alumni relations magazine. The third section is to talk about how your fundraising and development expenses should be coding. So it's broken into B and C. B is if you have a unique program code, such as a program code within your unit used on your state fund or your ICR fund. If you have one of those, then you need to have fundraising in the title. The NACUBO assigned to it must end in 99. And then when we get those requests, we're going to make sure that there's an A21 code assigned to it and banner behind the scenes that has a UFR on it. Similarly, for if you request to have a fundraising and development expense fund, like a gift fund or an endowment income fund, we're going to make sure that that fund has fundraising in the title. It has a default generic program code that ends in 99, and we will assign the UFR A21 code and banner behind the scenes. And then the last section is on making sure you provide adequate funding to cover or offset those fundraising and development expenses. So A goes over if you're using that unique program code that is on your state or your ICR, your admin allowance, you would do the budget adjustment request form, the BAR form, to move budget to cover those expenses. And then, or if you are using a gift fund or an endowment income fund, you can use our funds transfer between like an unrestricted gift fund to your fundraising and development expense gift fund. So that's section 11.6. I will continue on to 11.7. Again, please let me know if you have questions. So we have employee donations for programs under the perceived control of the employee. So this policy is providing information on the acceptance of donations made by an employee or an employee's immediate family member to support research or programs under the perceived control of that employee. So we expanded this section to include donations from a business entity where the employee or the employee's immediate family member has a controlling interest or the authority to make the donation. We also clarified that the system has to agree to accept these types of donations. And we provided detailed procedural guidance and conditions for how to accept those donations and then how to manage those donations once they are accepted. And then the Conflict of Interest Office and the foundation worked and updated the employee donor agreement, which is linked here and within the procedures. So those are kind of the changes to section 11.7. And then the last section of policy that I wanted to go over today is 11.8, returning funds to the foundation, the University of Illinois Foundation. So this provides guidance to units that need to return funds to the foundation for one reason or another, whether they're investing or reinvesting into a foundation endowment, or whether they're returning funds that were erroneously distributed to a banner gift fund. The procedures outline what must be done in order to return this money. So both the foundation and us at UAFR have to approve the return. If you're returning it to invest or reinvest, there has to be sufficient cash balance in the fund. You can't return money that's not there to invest or reinvest. And then we at UAFR are the ones that do cut that check to return the money to the foundation to ensure proper financial statement reporting. And then on this, we also updated the link. There's a form to return money. So the return of gift funds to the UI Foundation, the old policy was directing you to an old outdated Excel. So we updated this to the correct form. Any questions on the sections of 11 of policy that we have updated?
And there are no questions yet.
Okay, thank you. If not, some future policy updates. We are currently working, John Leroux and myself are currently working on updating section 11.13 on sponsorship gifts. Then we are hoping to update and use section 11.5. It's currently blank. We're hoping to break out the gift in kind and put it into 11.5. And then we'll continue to work with the foundation on updating the other sections of 11. And then long term, we are hoping to update section 2 on custodial funds. We want to break it out by fund type. So 9G, 9D, et cetera. And then also section 22 on self-supporting funds. And then a total 180 on the RPA bot. So we are currently at UAFR working with AITS on this RPA bot project. Currently, or what we have been doing in the past, just to give you some background, is we receive fund requests, program code requests, index code requests from all of you in the units to set up new funds, programs, index codes for, let's say, a gift fund, self-supporting fund. We receive those into our UAS email address inbox, and the subject matter expert in that area reviews that, asks you questions. But right now, we are sending that on to be data entered by our office manager. And she used to have student workers who assisted her, but with COVID, we haven't had that recently. And so it takes a while to get everything data entered. It's very menial. So in order to speed up that process for you all and to be more timely, we are working with AITS on this RPA bot. So this RPA project stands for Robotic Process Automation. And we have this software robot or bot that will, instead of having a human data enter the information into Banner, the bot will enter it for us. And it should be automated and a lot faster and won't have any human error. So we are starting with program code requests actually next week, where if you request a program code, it'll come to our office, we'll review it, but then we will send it on for the bot to data enter it into Banner for us. So with that, we had to update our Banner Fund Program Index Code request form to include an additional question to help the bot know who to direct these confirmation emails to once the code has been established. So I wanted to send a friendly reminder to everyone and talk about this. I know a lot of people save our fund program index code request form to their homepage or to their local drive. And instead of doing that, please always go to the forms webpage and get a new form and download it and use that, because we did add this additional question, which will help our bot know who to send these confirmation emails to. this extra question at the bottom of the first tab just says, provide the email addresses of any additional individuals that you would like to receive the confirmation email notification once the banner segment code is established. So that is our update on the RPA. Again, please always use the updated RPA form, FPI form from our website when you're requesting a new code. But that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
There are no questions.
Well, thank you so much.
Next up is the GAS, the GASB 87. Phil McCarthy, Courtney Engelhardt, and Danielle Stoner.
Sorry, Bernadette, I was talking away thinking that I had taken myself off mute.
Oh, that's okay.
Phil, are you on mute?
Yes, I finally found the mute button. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Is it the actual PowerPoint or is it a blank screen?
It's a PowerPoint.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ann. You're a tough one to follow here. You did a really good job. I can't wait for the robots to do these presentations for us. Good morning, everyone. I'm Phil McCarthy. I'm Assistant Controller of the University Accounting and Financial Reporting. My team is responsible for the annual financial reports for the University of Illinois system. GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. That is the board that passes the accounting regulations or guidance that we have to follow in order to have a unqualified opinion from our external auditors every year. And the GASB has issued a statement number 87, which has a major impact on how we report leases going forward, effective July 1st of 2021. So now I'm going to turn it over to Courtney Engelhardt, who will go through the rest of the presentation. Danielle Stoner is also a subject matter expert in this area, and she will also be assisting Courtney in the implementation of the standard. So Courtney, take it away.
Okay, you can flip to the next slide. I'm Courtney Engelhardt. Like Phil said, I'm an associate director in financial reporting and trying to help spearhead this GASB 87. So as of now, leases are, this GASB 87 changes the way we report leases. So if we lease equipment or real estate from a vendor, or if your department is the landlord to a third party outside of the system, GASB 87 is changing the reporting requirements. Currently, the standard, you can flip to the next slide, Phil. Currently, the standard, there's two types of leases, operating or capital right now. The new standard requires all governments, the state institutions, to report these leases the same, so as one type with just a few exceptions. All of the leases will now be considered capital financings of the underlying assets, so they'll all be more like capital leases. And then there's just a narrow range of short-term leases that are treated as kind of like the old operating leases. This standard now requires the recognition of assets and liabilities for all leases other than the short term. And as such, each lease will have a portion of their payments going to principal and to interest, kind of similar to, say, like your home mortgage payment. So things that the way GASB 87 impacts you and things we need to know, like right now, is that GASB 87 reporting requirements must be in place before July 1, 2021. So we're working on it currently, getting some software, and we're currently trying to make sure we have all of the leases the university has as of now. There will also be account code changes. So account codes on your requisitions will change to reflect the principal and interest payments, which we can help you with. And then also, as you're entering into new contracts for, like we said, equipment or real estate, or you're renewing any of your old leases, please reach out to myself or Danielle Stoner. It's easier for us to make sure the correct account code is being used at the beginning of the lease than it is for us to have to update the account code every month, or switch things, or search for the payments. And we would just like to say to look out for any future communications. But like I said, all leases will be moving from either operating or capital to just basically capital financing. So all of the leases, the assets will go on our books, and it'll be depreciated, and there's principal and interest. So the biggest point to take away right now is that if you're renewing or entering into a new lease and you're just not positive on the account code to use, please reach out to us, because we are more than willing to help make sure that the correct account codes are being used at the beginning of the lease. Or if you just in general have any lease questions, we're here as the subject matter experts to get you any of your answers. And there is our contact information. So you can reach us by email or phone. And if anybody has any questions on this new standard, I know I see a question now.
There was a
Is it-
question, sorry, about, does this not apply to leases with the university for university office space?
So like a university lease with another another department in the university. So those MOUs, I guess, we would still like to know about them, because there are certain, like, if the MOU is with the hospital and somebody else in the university, the hospital has their own financial statements. So those actually have to be reported on the hospital financial statements, but they are eliminated on the university financial statements. It does. Copiers, printers. So right now the like limit is anything over 5,000. We don't know if that will change, or like the threshold. But so basically anything. The internal is what I was just talking about, the MOUs. So if you have an internal one, like I was saying, we have hospital statements that are standalone and auxiliary facility statements that are standalone. So if there's an MOU with either of those entities, they would need to be reported on those entity financial statements, but they would be eliminated on the university. So basically, if you have a lease for equipment or space, it's better just to let us know.
Right, and we can evaluate whether it's,
Yes.
in fact, one of our bondholder entity financial statements.
Anybody else have any questions?
If you think of any more, just contact us at the email or phone numbers listed here on the slides, and I'm going to turn it back over to Gloria and Bernadette.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good information, already lots to absorb, and we have another colleague from UAFR joining us. We've been engaged in implementing the legislative relief provided by raising the fixed asset threshold for some time. And Jeff Weaver is going to join today to give us more information about phase 3 of this project.
Thanks, Gloria. And again, yeah, I'm Jeff Weaver. I'm a senior director in property accounting which is aligned in accounting and financial reporting, along with my other colleagues presenting today. Again, want to thank just the ability to come out and talk about the threshold phase 3. I know there are many business managers out there who will be fully aware of what I'm going to present today and helped us through phase 1 and 2. But this may be a refresher to others, and as well as for any newer managers joining the university in the last couple of years, trying to catch you up on some history.
Hey, Jeff, we're seeing your notes view. You might want to try to share again and catch the presentation view.
I will try to do that. Let's see here. You're going to make an old man work here, aren't you?
So at the top, you might, yep, there you go.
I'll try it again. And tell me if I get it this time.
Perfect, there it is.
Oh, good. All right. So what I want to cover today is for our agenda, just a brief history of some of the imperfections in this legislative relief the university got, a real quick overview of the university's 3 phases to manage through this threshold change. And then we'll spend a little time on some more of the phase 3 plan specifics. Going to real quickly show you some online resources and contacts and talk about impacts to biennial inventory and give you guys time for Q&A. So history, what we're really talking about is this threshold change was that the dollar amount of the items required to track items on inventory change. So the tracking threshold at the state of Illinois and for all state agencies moved from $500 to $1,000 for adding those records to tracking. The university did request a much higher threshold. We began with a $5,000 threshold. In negotiations with the state and CMS, that moved to $2,500 very quickly, and ultimately was negotiated down to $1,000, not what the university wanted. But as a part of that negotiations, the state also did create a process for agencies to remove some of their old and aged items that are valued, less than $1,000 in that tracking threshold. And why did they do that? Again, to really allow agencies to focus their efforts on higher value equipment, with the hopes that we can be better at managing the higher value equipment. So the state law was revised effective January 1st, 2018. The state admin code that allowed the university and other agencies to move forward on this was finally revised effective May of 2019, and university policy was quickly revised, and we started moving to the threshold effective May 2019. So the university did use a 3-phase approach. Phase 1 was the new acquisitions threshold, moved from 500 to 1,000. Basically, the account codes used to generate those equipment records, the value of that range changed as a minimum to 1,000. And so that is the new university and state policy is the 1,000. And that phase 1 again is current and what people are using now. Phase 2 was the removal of what I'll call standalone records, individual item records with a cost below $1,000. So again, these are things the legislation and the admin code allowed the university to remove from inventory without any CMS approval. And that was completed in November 2019 with a 2-day system lockdown, those systems being FabWeb and Swiss and Biennial. So phase 3, again, we're talking about the new phase 3. What is that? It's the removal of these aged items with a fair market value less than 1,000. There are some exclusions that apply. There are records that the university decided we're not going to remove. Those include capitalized records. So all capitalized records are staying on the inventory, as well as any item that was less than 5 years old is remaining on inventory right now. And again, those were exclusions that the university determined were wise in order to get CMS's approval on these items we are going to remove. And vehicles and firearms should not be a part of the list. Regardless, those items need to be inventoried regardless of their original cost and their fair market value. So what does that mean? I'm not sure you guys can all see this. Probably better we're on Zoom. But this is just a little bit of an impact. So at the beginning of fiscal year 20, our beginning balance of equipment, the university was approaching 300,000 items of tracked equipment with a book cost of over 1.6 billion. At phase 2 removal that occurred in 2019, the university removed 112,000 records valued at 81 or costed at 81 million. This phase 3 is going to be a total of close to 77,000 records. Again, with about 172 million in costs. What that means is the effects of this threshold change was that we dropped our current remaining equipment is going to be just over 100,000 records, just over a third of what we formerly had on inventory, but yet we're tracking 85% of the book costs. So this was the good scenario that the university sought legislative relief on. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the phase 3 plan. Again, this is the removal of records with fair market value under 1,000. Our property accounting office has already identified these records for removal. CMS did require that we provided I'll say a quasi depreciation schedule to support those depreciated values. CMS has already approved all of those record removals. But we're going through this next process here where property accounting, our office has emailed all of these lists to the units during the month of December. And so those lists were sent to the unit property accounting contacts and the unit department heads. Those are the unit contacts and unit heads in Fab Web and Biennial. We also sent those lists to the org fin manager from Banner if we had no unit contact in Fab Web, as we do have some unfilled roles given the situation with incompatible roles and system permissions. So you may have received that as a financial manager or business manager when you're not one of those roles. And again, the result of that is we will have a system lockdown February 8th through the 12th to remove those records, which will really mirror the phase 2 plan implementation that occurred last November. So phase 3 plan, as far as unit responsibilities, what are we expecting from you guys? Expecting you guys to review those listings that we mailed out. Confirm the fair market value of each item is not greater than 1,000. Confirm you have no vehicles or firearms on those listings. And so if you do find anything that you think really should be retained on inventory, we're asking you to report those items to our property accounting office. Those emails do identify Marty Conrad, and her contact information will be at the end of the slideshow. But please report those items by Friday, January 29th, 2021. And no response is needed if there's no changes needed to the list. Also wanted to mention the physical retagging of the items. The expectations relative to that retagging is to be done during your unit's next physical observation. So people might have some different interpretations of that, but here's how I'm looking at it is the 2020 cycles that have been extended for biennial. If you've already completed that in your unit or you're in process of, you've already inventoried part of your inventory, that retagging is not required until your next cycle and physical observation. But for the 2021 cycles that are just beginning, we do expect the retagging to be completed during the 2021 cycle. And as far as resources and contacts, I wanted to provide this hyperlink. We have a web page devoted to the phase 3, the 3 phases, if you want to read more, if I confused anybody with the details today. And again, reach out to Marty Conrad in our office if you have any questions, if you have concerns you maybe didn't receive that mailing, or if you have responses, please include support for anything that you believe should be retained on inventory that would have a fair market value greater than 1,000.
Jeff, we do have a question.
Okay.
The phase 3 plan will go into effect after the biannual audit is complete. Therefore, units do not have to upload an updated list to the biannual system to complete the audit.
I think you just beat me to the punch.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm going to try to explain the impacts to biennial.
Perfect.
So for those of you who are doing your biennial, once you load your inventory lists in biennial, that's a stagnant list. It's a snapshot of what inventory you have when you take that snapshot and load your list. So once you've loaded your list, these removals from inventory are not going to suddenly drop off that biennial inventory list, just not the way the system is designed. So for the 2020 extended biennials, your current due date is the end of this month, and obviously these removals aren't happening until February. So, unfortunately, you won't be able to reload your inventory. This isn't going to help you, unfortunately, for 2020, except that if you're aware these phase 3 removals are going to happen in February, if you have some unfound items in your inventory and you mark them as pending unfound, in the pending resolution window, when those records get removed out of the university inventory, those items will drop from keeping you from becoming complete for the biennial cycle and finishing your complete cycle. So, unfortunately, the 2020 extended biennials, I don't see there will be a big impact, again, because these removals are not going to happen before the certification. For the 2021 biennial cycles, the suggestion is that units wait to load their lists until after the February removal, and then you'll be starting with those fewer items on your inventory to complete. And again, for 2021, we'll expect units to retags those items as the physical inventories are completed in 2021. So I hope that addresses the how does this impact my biennial question. And wanted to share also what isn't changing. All electronics with memory must continue to be data wiped regardless of the inventory tracking status. So these things, all electronics still need to come through FabWeb like all other equipment. And that's the second bullet. All equipment disposals must continue to be requested through FabWeb with all equipment set to the university surplus warehouses for scrap and surplus processing, regardless of if they're on inventory or not. So even though you may have computers dropping from inventory, as you dispose of those, you still need to do the data wiping, verify their data wiped in FabWeb as you send those to the surplus warehouse. I hope that's clear. And I'm happy to take any other questions.
Jeff, we do have a couple more. For the items that are marked as unfounded or pending from the 2020 cycle, will those items be dropped after February and no longer needed to be investigated or researched?
Yes, that is exactly what I was saying about the anything that was marked unfound and that would otherwise prevent you from completing because it's still pending and it's still an active record showing as unfound. Now, if any of those unfound records are these phase 3 removals, that record removal will take that item off of your remaining pending items to resolve in that pending resolution window, and you will be able to complete and show as complete as a status. So it will help you from that perspective. And I hope that's clear.
I think it is. And last question, if they wait until February to load their list, will the due date get extended beyond March 31st?
That there has been no communication about that. We haven't talked about that. So no, not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. That's a lot of information about accounting. We have a couple of minutes if there are any additional questions. Otherwise, we will turn our attention now from accounting to focus on purchasing. Deborah Matlock and Aaron Rosenthal of UIC Purchasing are here today to provide updates on source to pay and, believe it or not, on the start of the renewal season and establishing new orders for FY22.
Thank you, Gloria. So I'm Deborah Matlock, and everybody's probably aware I'm the Executive Director of UIC Purchasing, and I wanted to give everyone a sense of where we are in the source to pay program specific to our iBuy optimization. So we have new solutions in iBuy that were implemented in December. We have a new purchase requisition form, which replaced 5 other forms, and we also have a standing order form. As of this morning, about 900 requisitions have been processed, primarily using the new purchase requisition form. There were 3 live webinars that were conducted, and there are also job aids available on the website at iBuy Training Materials, and the link is provided here. We are adding 2 more forms to the iBuy Showcase. They are planned for release at the end of the month. There will be a change request form so that you can initiate your change request in iBuy without the need for either a service desk ticket, which UIC doesn't use much, UIC Purchasing doesn't use much, but the other campuses, our sister campuses do use that, our sister charts, I should say, do use that, but it will eliminate the need for a separate email, as you will be able to initiate your change request in iBuy. We will also be incorporating a sticker on the showcase for the solicitation information form. So instead of going to the OBFS website to complete the solicitation information form and then attaching it as an internal attachment to a requisition for which you are requesting a competitive solicitation be initiated, you will in fact do that in iBuy. We are planning again to do live webinars to walk you through these new forms. So watch for your email notices. And then job aids will also be available upon the release of these new forms on the iBuy Training Materials page. Next. I also wanted to provide a Contracts Plus update. Ideally, Contracts Plus, which is a Jagger module like iBuy, will replace our Illinois Contract System, or ICS. Configuration activities for the design of the system elements does continue, and there are core project team has been identified, which represents the various contracts offices and AITS to make decisions and to do the test on these various configuration elements. We do have plans to share information and secure feedback from customers. Those plans are in process, and stay tuned for additional updates. And then we'll also be advising you about our scheduled dates for implementation and system rollout. Next. And now Philippe from Change Management is going to speak to the travel reimbursement replacement project.
Thank you very much, Deborah, and hello, everyone. Well, my name is Philippe, and I'm, like Deborah mentioned, change practitioner at Business Solutions and Support, and I'm happy to present.
Go back.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernadette. Yes, I can't speak that fast. So I'm presenting on behalf of our colleagues from Payables, and I'm thrilled to announce that the university has signed a contract with Chrome River on December 28th, and for a new software solution that will replace the TEM. We are at the stage right now where project teams and work groups are being assembled. We'll be reaching out to a variety of our colleagues to form project team that will help us commence implementation during the first quarter of 2021. So those conversations are taking place right now. And we will, of course, keep this community regularly updated. And please look forward to the next BMG meeting and big presentation from Payables on this topic in February. So thank you very much. And if you have any information, if you're seeking any information or want to check the latest updates, please feel free to regularly visit the Source to Pay website.
Okay. If there are no questions, then we're going to segue into an update about FY22. And Aaron is going to lead that discussion.
Thank you, Deborah. Happy New Year, everyone. It's hard to believe that we're already thinking about fiscal year 22 renewals, but iBuy is ready for you. Next slide, please. We strongly recommend that everyone get started on those renewals as early as possible this year, especially given that for many of you, this will be the first time using the new iBuy forms that Deborah talked about that were rolled out in December. The forms are user-friendly, but please be sure to allow extra time in case you have any questions. A really important point for this year's renewals, please do not copy from previous shopping carts that were created on the iBuy forms, the old iBuy forms. We recognize for this year that's going to be a change and a little bit more work. However, that will ensure compliance with several important procurement requirements that are addressed via the new forms. And once you get through 1 year of using the new forms, you'll be able to go back to copying next year. So again, this year, please, when you're processing those renewals, if you haven't already created requisitions for them on the new forms, please create those from scratch rather than copying. Like in previous years, a formal timetable of requisition due dates for FY22 will be sent out through OBFS and the UIC DDDH listservs. Those specific dates are helpful because they give you a sense of the potential additional time required, especially for large dollar procurements. But really, it can all be distilled down to please get started as early as possible on any of those purchase requisitions for renewals or new orders. That will only help to ensure sufficient time to navigate the various steps of the procurement process. Lastly, UIC purchasing will also assist in sending emails to units about the renewal options that are available under their existing procurements. Stay tuned for those emails to be coming soon. Next slide, please. A friendly reminder that the small purchase threshold is $100,000 and you should not artificially divide procurements to get around that threshold. That artificial dividing is a concept known as stringing. If you know today that you have a need that all in will exceed $100,000, please work with purchasing to obtain procurement authority, which may take the form of a competitive solicitation, meaning a request for proposal or invitation for bid process, or an exception or an exemption. The great news this year is that due to the new iBuy forms that Deborah was talking about, we are no longer constrained with some of the iBuy system limitations that we had to work through in previous years. Specifically, iBuy standing orders can now have line items that exceed $999,999. Those orders do not need to be entered in Banner anymore. Also, standing orders no longer rely on what was previously described as the price quantity flip. So when you use the new grade standing order form that Deborah mentioned, the price total will truly represent the price, which is good news for us as well as for vendors. It's much clearer that way. All of this is to say, with the exception of non-conforming orders, and non-conforming orders still do need to be entered in Banner, all of your other requisition activity should be something that can be handled directly in iBuy. That's been a long time coming and we're really excited to be there. So all of your requisitions, with the exception of the non-conforming orders, can now get initiated directly in iBuy. Just a few final quick reminders. Small purchases should be supported by multiple quotes or an explanation for why multiple quotes aren't possible. Next slide, please. That information about the multiple quotes or the explanation for why not is directly captured in the new iBuy forms. That's one of the great pieces of value add that you don't have to remember to attach your quotes. The forms itself will ask you for that now as well. And if you know that you have a need for a competitive solicitation, that gets requested in iBuy on the iBuy form, attaching a solicitation information form. And Deborah talked about some ways that we're looking to improve that process as well in the future. Also want to reemphasize something that Deborah alluded to for competitive solicitations that are up for renewal pursuant to Section 8I of the Business Enterprise Program Act. Review will be required at the time of renewal. That's review of the BEP goal to determine if the goal is being met, or also potentially whether a goal might need to be added if there wasn't one previously, or whether the existing goal may need to be increased. With all of that, I see there's at least one question that has been entered into the chat box. There is a question, can non-net 30 POs be entered in iBuy now? The great news is that the answer is yes. We have a job aid. It is on the iBuy job aids page, and we can send out that link with the PowerPoint. And this will be referenced in the renewal documentation that gets sent out as well. But there is now a mechanism to request a non-net 30 payment term directly on the iBuy requisition. Also see a question about, can we enter non-conforming in iBuy or just banner? As of right now, non-conforming requisitions still need to be entered directly in banner. The reason for that is that there is some coding in banner that payables relies upon to know that it is appropriate to pay that non-conforming order, even though the invoice would appear to predate the date that's on the purchase order. So as of right now, non-conforming POs, that is the sole bucket that has to get initiated directly in banner.
Right.
And another question from Rich, what is the minimum threshold for multiple quotes? We are looking from $10,000 to $100,000. So small purchases starting at $10,000 would require either multiple quotes or that explanation, which is a nice radio button directly on the new purchase requisition form in iBuy that allows you to select the reason why multiple quotes may not be possible. We're looking for the multiple quotes or that explanation from 10,000 to 100,000. Thanks, I see Deborah commented into the chat for those who may not have seen it. Again, there is this job aid that talks about how to handle the non-net 30, and that will be referenced in the FY22 procedures and renewals document. A question from Jay, great question. Is the small purchase waiver form still necessary? The great news is that no, that separate form is not necessary anymore, because the content on that form that captured why multiple quotes may not have been possible is now directly incorporated within the new iBuy purchase requisition form. So the new smart form, the new purchase requisition form in iBuy that replaced all of those old iBuy forms that Deborah mentioned, that kind of TurboTax style, asks you a bunch of questions and guides you to provide the appropriate information, including potentially that explanation for why multiple quotes is not possible.
And I wanted to add to that, for standing orders that are also less than $100,000, the small purchase questions are captured in the standing order form as well as the purchase requisition form. I also want to caution people about non-conformings. Non-conformings are unauthorized purchases. They are a specific violation of the Illinois Procurement Code. If you want, Section 20-80D, no payment shall be made for any services rendered for which there was not a purchase order or contract in place prior to the delivery of services. The fact that the university has permitted non-conforming purchases and invoices to persist at some point is going to get the wrong kind of attention. It got the wrong kind of attention a year before the prior CPO term expired. But the new CPO, who is from a state agency, has some interesting questions about the university's practices. It is unknown at this time if the other public universities are also permitting non-conformings, but I want people to be aware the proper sequence is you do a requisition, we issue a purchase order, services or supplies are provided or delivered, and then the invoice is issued. So don't get too comfortable, don't continue to be comfortable that we can process non-conforming purchase orders and invoices, even in Banner. And I'll say it with a smile, so. But if there are no other questions, wait, there is another question. Can purchasing approvers see the answers we provide on the requisition, like why multiple quotes are not provided? Or do we have to add this as a comment, even if we already answered the question on the requisition form. Will not need to add it as a comment. The radio buttons will in fact allow you to see what information was added in the forms. The forms will also be searchable if you need to come back in the history of the iBuy requisition and purchase order. So you'll be able to see what forms were initiated and completed as part of a specific purchase order.
Yep, to add on to Deborah's comment, a goal of the new forms was to make as much of this content searchable as possible. So one other point that's worth highlighting is that there are now actual fields to capture the contract number and the procurement number. So please be mindful of that as well. Internal notes was really an interim solution before, but unfortunately it was not something that could be easily searched upon. So the great news is that we now have dedicated fields to capture these various pieces of information. See a couple more questions that came in. One from Jackie: do all purchase orders need a CFS? By CFS, I think she means one of the primary purchasing templates is the contract for services under $10,000 template. There's also another purchasing template, the contract for procurement of supplies and services. That question of whether all purchase orders need a contract template, the answer is no. So for example, many routine purchases of goods, supplies that are not services get done on a purchase order only, where the purchase order serves as the actual contract. On the whole, although the university does not have a comprehensive policy on when mutually executed contracts are required, most services, as a general rule of thumb, often involve a mutually executed contract, especially the larger dollar amounts.
You're fading, Aaron.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure how much of that trailed off. Just to repeat, most services, especially at larger dollar amounts, should have a mutually executed contract. There's some additional guidance on when a contract is potentially required that can be found in the risk management insurance matrix, which is on the UPFS webpage, but feel free to follow up directly for further discussion.
Yep. I see Carla sent a note. If rules around non-conforming POs are now going to be enforced, then can someone send out a notification to the entire university so that PIs know the PO must be issued prior to services being provided? There has always been, and is in the OBFS policy, a requirement that the PO must be issued prior to services being provided. And we've emphasized that countless times in these meetings. Now, if in fact a decision is made to enforce the law, because it's not about a policy decision, but if a decision is made to enforce the law, then yes, we'll certainly give notice. It will be in conjunction with university payables, since they will be the ones, they are the ones who in fact catch and receive these non-conforming invoices and return them to both you in the unit as well as to purchasing to assist in the resolution. And then purchasing has to approve ultimately the payment. So certainly we would notify people, but I just want to encourage you to do the right thing now without having the need for us to continue to remind people. The numbers of non-conformings have been going up. And so we do need to really be mindful of, and particularly in COVID, while we are not in our offices, but delivery of services and goods is still occurring, to be very mindful of that sequence and to please request that your vendors not deliver or provide goods or services or issue an invoice until they actually have a purchase order. I know that some vendors date their invoice the same date as their quotation, but you should really caution them about doing that they really should not be providing work or delivering goods or services or providing an invoice until they have a purchase order from the university.
If there aren't any other additional questions, thank you all. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to follow up with Deborah and me. We're always here to help.
Yep. Even in COVID, and all phones at for UIC purchasing are forwarded to our individual cell phones, but you can certainly always call the central UIC number, which is 996-2850, and we will have your questions answered. Those calls are triaged. They are still being received. You can also send an email to UIC Purchasing at uillinois.edu. Okay, and thank you for your attention.
I see there's one additional question that has come in, and it's related to can we receive feedback when a vendor sends a vendor maintenance form? Name changes and vendor ownership changes are a problem.
Mhm.
Oh, and somebody answered it. Direct that question to university payables. We will, my staff will kind of take that on and make sure we get somebody to answer that question for the group.
Thank you.
Yep. And thank you. I have to say that the news, the universe must think the news is also very good, because I actually had sunshine coming in my window for a few minutes during the iBuy presentation.
Yay! we are so happy because everyone may or may not be aware that UIC was mandated to use iBuy in 2013. And we released it in 2014, and it was always, it's been a continuing source of concern for us and angst that we couldn't do everything in iBuy. And now I think that by the end of this month, we will be so much closer to being able to truly use an electronic procurement system for at least initiating all of our procurements. So we are very, very pleased to be at this point.
Indeed. And as you say, if we continue to work on the non-conforming issue, there will be a day when we can say all orders go through iBuy.
Yes. So, and stay tuned for information about stage 2 of the optimization project, which will be e-invoicing, which will allow invoices to be processed in iBuy. And that may in fact assist us in addressing that sequence, since we will be able to process invoices in iBuy, but not sure about the non-conformings. But
yep,
fingers crossed, thumbs up, life's good.
Forward movement. Yes, indeed.
Happy New Year.
Thank you again. Let's turn our attention to another exciting topic. I wanted to say that over some period of time, we have out of my office and others have conducted a program of orientation for new business and finance employees, but Seth Yoder of Business Solutions and Support is here to give us information about an enhanced program that I am just really excited to offer to the university community, and he'll give us much more details about it.
Yes, thank you, Gloria. Well, I would like to share some information today with you about our new business and finance orientation. Before we get started, let me go ahead and introduce myself. As Gloria said, I'm Seth Yoder. I'm a Senior Organizational Development Specialist from Business Solutions and Support. And today I'd like to walk you through a brief overview of the development of the business and finance orientation, provide you with a description of who our primary audience is, lay out the format and the objectives of the orientation, describe what we expect the benefits of the orientation to be, and lastly, provide you with an update on the development and next steps for the orientation. So let me give you a little bit of context of how we got to where we are today. So about a year ago, BSS was asked to review the business and finance orientations and companion websites at each university. The primary reason for doing this was to identify if there were any opportunities to consolidate the content, create a consistent orientation across the 3 universities and system, and possibly eliminate redundancy with other trainings that we were concurrently providing. Upon the conclusion of our review and analysis, we determined that an overhaul of the business and finance orientation would be needed to provide a more consistent information across the 3 universities and websites. The goal in revising the orientation was to scale back the existing orientation to make it less about processes and policies and make it more about organizational structure, functions, resources, and also to point to helpful training to assist new business and finance staff as they settle into their new roles and begin to think about career development opportunities. So who is our target audience? We believe that our target audience for this orientation are new employees with business and finance responsibilities, preferably within their first year of service. However, we do not want to discredit the value this orientation could provide to staff within their first few years of service, or even existing staff who have recently taken on new business and finance responsibilities. Like with much of our training, we're looking to our managers, directors, unit heads, business managers, and HR staff to share and promote this orientation within your departments. Furthermore, we'd like to encourage all management to work with their departments to determine who in your existing staff would be most suitable for this orientation, and to include this information on how to register for the business and finance orientation in your respective employee onboarding programs. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the orientation format and objectives. This orientation will be a 1-hour instructor-led informational session delivered online via Zoom. We've also allotted 15 minutes at the end of each orientation for questions and answers. As I described at the outset of this presentation, the primary objectives of the orientation will be to help new business and finance staff understand the basic functions of the central business and finance and other relevant units, discover more information on business and finance units, including training and development opportunities, job aids, useful forms, etc. And then how to utilize the business and finance orientation website to further explore the wealth of resources our central business and finance units provide. In just a few minutes, I'll give you a brief preview of the website and give you a better look and idea of how the website will work. So what are some of the benefits from this orientation? We believe that new and existing staff will benefit from this orientation for a few reasons. First, it will provide an opportunity to develop a greater understanding of the key roles each central business and finance unit have. They'll also develop a greater understanding of their role within the University of Illinois system and the development opportunities they are afforded. And this orientation now will be delivered and maintained by the University of Illinois system, which will help ensure consistency and accuracy across the 3 universities. So now let's talk a little bit about our progress to date. So far we've conducted 3 pilots with key stakeholders and subject matter experts across the 3 universities, and have received positive feedback from the pilot groups on the value of the training and the website. After the pilots were conducted, we sent a short survey out to the participants and received a lot of feedback, and have made revisions to the orientation based upon some of that feedback we received. The Business and Finance Orientation Companion website is very nearly complete, and the link to the orientation registration and Ability LMS is now live. So what are some of our next steps? So the orientation is going to launch in February and will run on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of each month. Again, I'd like to encourage all management to incorporate business and finance orientation into your onboarding checklist for new hires. Your advocacy for this orientation is going to ensure this information gets to the right staff when they need it most. So now I'd like to take you out to the website and give you a quick preview of it. And we'll share this with you as well so that you can go, this link so that you can go out to and view it on your own time. So you'll notice at the top of the website, there's a welcome message with instructions on how to register, followed by a button that will take you out to Ability LMS to register. So this is the welcome message with some instructions. And then here's the button. If you click on this, this will take you out to Ability LMS, where you can register for the orientation. Below the button, you'll see that the content is broken up into 3 steps. Step 1, what are business and finance units? In this section, staff is introduced to the business and finance units and the primary services they provide. If you click on this button, a drop-down menu will pop out, and you'll see all of the business and finance related units. If you click on one of the units, another drop-down menu will come, and you'll see all of the primary services that this unit provides, as well as a link to the unit's homepage. In step 2, business and finance training opportunities, staff are introduced to the training and development resources. Again, click on the button, drop-down menu comes out. You'll see the link to the Business and Finance Training Center, as well as links to each part of the Business and Finance Training Center with descriptions of what each component includes. And then in step 3, stay in the know. In this section, staff are introduced to the most important information they will need as they learn about their new roles, like the policy manual and how to subscribe for business and finance news. I know there's a lot of information that's contained in this website, so I do encourage you to go out and visit this website when you get a chance. So I've talked a lot about the business and finance orientation. I'm going to pause now to see if there are any questions that have come in.
Seth, there are no questions at this point.
Okay. Well, again, I thank you for your time. Here's my contact information. If you have any further questions about the business and finance orientation, please do reach out.
Thanks, Seth, and I hope you all have staff who can take advantage of this orientation at some point. Well, even though the indirect cost study is not conducted every year, I can't believe it, but it's time again to start thinking about it and bring our attention to this critical analysis activity. Today, Maureen Johnson is going to give us information about the space survey and will also offer some training opportunities.
Thank you, Gloria. One second to share my screen. Can you see my screen, Bernadette or Gloria?
Yes, we can see it, Maureen.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maureen Johnson, an Associate Director in the System Government Costing Office. And today I just want to give you some announcements about the upcoming FY21 space survey and training. So the space survey is for the UIC campus only for this year. And our office, the System Government Costing Office, will be collaborating with the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Admin Services, Planning, Sustainability, and Project Management Office. Planning Sustainability, the Planning and Sustainability Office actually manages the space survey. However, every 3 to 4 years, we collaborate with their office when we're going into our F&A base year. So FY21 is the F&A base year for UIC. And what I mean by F&A base year, for anyone who doesn't know, if you are a unit that has research grants and actively uses our F&A rate, so or the ICR rate, as some people refer to it, every 3 to 4 years we have to renegotiate that rate. So our current rate is scheduled to expire in FY22, which means that FY21 has been predetermined as our base year. So as a step in that process, we'll use, when FY21 closes, we'll use the results of the space survey, and we'll use our financial data results to populate the proposal and submit that to the federal government. So that's why the costing office is involved. If you're used to doing the space survey and not used to working with our office, this year we'll be involved in that process. So I'll go to the next slide for the announcements. So this is pretty much the timeline for the FY21 space survey. Next week, an announcement will go out on Tuesday, January 12th. It will be titled Facilities and Administrative Rate and Space Survey. And it will come from Susan Passer, the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Robert Barish, the Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs, and Joanna Groden, the Vice Chancellor for Research. It will go to all AFOs and all departmental gatekeepers. And it will highlight that, our F&A rate is scheduled to expire, and we need to develop a new rate for FY23 and beyond. It will talk a little bit about, ICR revenue being an important component of the overall university budget. And as a first step in us preparing the F&A rate study, we need the units to update the space survey information by room and by function in the web-based system. Because once we submit the information, there will be a federal audit that comes immediately after we submit the proposal. So if you've been involved before, you know that our office will reach out, contact you once the auditors have made their selections, and will physically come out with them so that they can evaluate the rooms to compare what you've reported to what they actually see. So they want to make sure that a lab is a lab and an office is an office, and so on and so forth. So that announcement will go out. It'll have the information that's in the second bullet here, which is announcing our webinar training sessions that will be held via Zoom in January. So there'll be 2 training webinars, one January 21st from 1:30 to 3 p.m. and then another Thursday, January 28th from 1:30 to 3 p.m. There will be a link in that announcement. So very important that you look for that announcement. The way to register is to click the link in that announcement and register for, one or both of the webinars, whatever you prefer. The announcement will only go to the AFOs and the gatekeepers, but we encourage any units, so any AFOs that have research in your department, to please forward those announcements to the business managers also. We typically get a lot of gatekeepers to forward them to the business managers, because if you have research in your department, so if you have a lab where there's research, the gatekeeper will be required to populate the PI's names who's working in those labs and the grant numbers, the banner grant codes that they've worked on in those labs. So the business managers are a very important part of the process, but the space survey system only allows one person to be the point of contact and to enter and edit information. And so that person is the gatekeeper. So that's our primary point of contact, but we do acknowledge that the business managers have a very important role in this. So please, when you receive that announcement, please forward it to any of your business managers who you view will be participating in the space survey process. Right after that training on the 28th, a few days later, the space survey will open on Monday, February 1st. It will be open for 5 weeks. It'll close on Friday, March 5th. There will not be any other trainings during the time that the space survey is open. However, the FIM staff will be available throughout the survey period for one-on-one consultations. So you can contact Patricia Pack, who's an associate director for FIM, and her email is here if you have any questions, or Jesse Salgado, who is one of the space administrators. Both of them will be available for any support you may need throughout the space survey process. In addition to myself, but I'm more so the third point of contact if you have issues not finding grants that need to be populated to rooms for PIs or things like that. So they'll know when to forward those items to me. But the 3 of us will be facilitating these 2 trainings. So we'll have resources and more contact information available next week or in those upcoming trainings. So these are the announcements. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up that that announcement was coming, and the trainings will take place this month and the survey period. Unless there's any questions, that's pretty much the announcement. Any questions?
There are no questions, Maureen.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, I'll start presenting. Thank you all.
Thanks. All right, now it's time for my little moment in the sun today, and I'm going to be joined by Derek Browse and Philippe Prispage of Business Solutions and Support. We're going to tell you a little bit more about the OBFS website redesign effort. So today I'll give you a little bit of an overview, then my colleagues will talk about the work that's been completed and the community feedback and peer website review that we conducted, work in progress, things that are going to be happening in the near term and a little bit longer, and then next steps. So by way of an overview, although we've called the project the OBFS website redesign, really, to be honest, it's not strictly a redesign. In fact, we are looking at all the existing content and gathering feedback from the entire university community to create a brand new business and finance website. So it's really a comprehensive look at the information that's being provided to you and conversations with you about information that would be useful. So the website structure has been functional, and I didn't go back and look at the specifics, but for many years, I believe about 10 years ago, we brought a consultant in who determined that the essential structure of the site served the objectives of its use. But 10 years is many generations of web development. So it really was high time to reassess completely. And in order to create a new site that meets the needs of the university going forward, we decided that we needed to take a very structured approach. So we're doing the project in several phases. The first phase, the analysis phase, is closing up right now, and it included a content audit, community surveys, focus groups, and many of you who are on the call today were invited and participated, and I want to thank you for that. We're doing engagement analysis through analytics and peer review. The next part of the phase will include preliminary wireframing and a design proposal as we work with our user experience design experts from AITS. Phase 2 then becomes the design and development component of the project, and it will likely begin sometime this year. It'll be based on the implementation of recommendations from phase 1, of course. While this is a huge undertaking, we feel that in order to meet the needs of the university community, we must reflect the operational and organizational changes that have happened and continue to happen, and leverage new technologies and design methodologies that have evolved in the last decade. So now I'd like to ask Philippe to provide more information on the community feedback component that we've gathered.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you, Gloria. Delighted to introduce this in further detail to you. You may have noticed that a while back, we sent a survey asking about your engagement and your participation with content on OBF's website. Thank you for your participation in that survey. We received 550 responses, and we used that survey as a basis for our focus group, which was the next approach in our community feedback. So we formed 5 focus groups according to the following metrics. We wanted to look at folks who are highly experienced users, but have no web design and actually appreciate the website. We looked at those users who are highly experienced, also have no web design, but do not like the website very much. We also focused at some of you who are maybe low experienced users and don't have web or internet experience, as well as those who have experience in web design, who are more proficient in HTML and generally web work, and do appreciate the website, as well as those who have that experience but do not like it, so that we wanted to get a very representative view of how you interact with the website, what you do on the website, and what kind of information you would like to see on the new website, and how you would like to interact with it. On that basis, we will work on wireframing and a different user experience, and that will be in the next steps that I will pass over to my colleague Derek to explain to you. But thank you very much again for that community feedback. Without you, we wouldn't be able to create a meaningful website, and now we have a great foundation to do that.
Got to remember to unmute yourself. So like Philippe said, we have a number of things underway, including the analysis work done via the focus groups, via the surveys. We're also conducting a website inventory as part of that, and we're also doing some data analysis. So the website inventory, you're probably all, maybe not all, but some of you familiar with as well, as Dana Lebreau and Bernadette Rossmore have been reaching out to those folks who have been identified as content owners. So if you have a page or you have information on a page that is owned by you or the unit you represent, they have been in contact with you, communicating with you to establish that ownership, to make sure we have a clear understanding of what units own the content on this site, and then what representatives from those units need to be consulted in how this content is going to be transformed and delivered effectively on the new website that we plan to design and implement. keep an eye out for those emails from Dana and Bernadette. It's very important information that they'll be sharing with you. They'll be sharing a large spreadsheet that'll show you all of the content on the website, the URLs, and a lot of information they need to gather from you as far as whether or not you own that content. Is it accurate? Is it up to date? We'll be doing that full content audit so that we understand exactly what's on the site and the current status of that content. Is it up to date or isn't it? So we want to make sure when we get to designing the new website, it's not just about the architecture, right? It's not just about how you navigate the site and how that information is presented. It's also making sure the information itself is accurate and useful. And then the engagement analysis, that's really takes off from where Philippe left us. When we consulted with all of you, that survey, those focus groups, we collected a wealth of information from you all. So now we are analyzing that data. We're producing some final reports to get that qualitative data, right? Your user experiences. Combined with that, we're also pulling in some quantitative data. So we're looking at analytics from the website on clicks and hits and bounce rates. We want to know what components are the most visited or the least visited, or how you're all engaging with that. And then we'll join that quantitative and qualitative data together to get a full picture of how everyone is using this website. So that's what's currently in the works. As we transition to the next steps, our one major next step is what both Gloria and Philippe have already mentioned, and that are the design recommendations, those wireframes. We're going to be taking all of that information that you all gave us and have worked so hard for us to develop, where we're going to develop recommendations, we're going to develop some visual examples, and then we're going to bring that information back to you so that you get to immediately see how your input is being used, how that data we've collected from you is going to be such a powerful component of designing this new site to make sure it is meeting your needs. So that is our big next step for this phase. So look out probably in the next month. I would imagine come February, we will start reaching out to you all again for your input on the recommendations that we're going to put in place based on your previous input. And then I'm going to hand it back to Gloria, who's going to give you a little bit of a preview of the second phase of this project.
So in terms of phase 2, after we get to the recommendations, the process becomes, because this again will be a pretty significant engagement, a template that goes to ITPC to engage the AITS resources we're going to need to be able to deploy the new site, which is why we don't have a date for you right now in terms of exactly when that's going to commence. The ITPC process usually takes a couple of months for us to get through, and we need to be at a point where we can understand the design recommendations so that the people who are creating that template will be able to do estimates of the number of hours that are needed to be able to resource the project. So that's really our next phase, next step in phase 2. Phase 2, of course, will also include testing information, testing time, and that again is something that we'll reach out to you to ask for your assistance as we move into the beginning stages of deployment and understand whether the site that we've created on paper really is usable in practice. So be looking for information about this project throughout the next year. Any questions today?
There are no questions.
Thank you for joining with me to present. This is an exciting project for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing it move forward.
Thank you.
Our final presentation today is going to be introduced by Shauna Claiborne of the Office of Procurement Diversity. They're doing great work introducing the university community to diverse suppliers that are offering goods and services to us.
All right, thank you, Gloria. So good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm Shauna. Shauna Claiborne, Supplier Diversity Coordinator in the Office of Procurement Diversity. And today I am here to introduce or reintroduce some of you to SLG Innovation. SLG Innovation and their partner were recently awarded an IPAC contract that just happened to come at an kind of an unfortunate time. The times we're in, but really at a perfect time. So without further ado, I would turn it over to Ed Burns and Mike Phillips.
Thank you so much, Shauna. Can you guys, everyone hear me okay? I just want to thank you for the opportunity. The new contract that we were awarded from IPEC is for incident response, security assessment, and digital forensic services. So right now we know this is a big area of major hack that hit our nation and most of our organizations, including universities. So I'm going to have Mike Phillips go through our presentation quickly, and we are well aware that we are the last group to present before we give you your day back. So thank you for the opportunity. Mike?
Yep.
Okay, you're up.
Yes, thank you, and all of you that are at home, take a sip of your umbrella drink. And right now, my presentation is not advancing.
I wonder if it's, maybe I might be controlling it. Let me see.
Let me try it again here. Can you see my screen, first of all?
Yes, we see your screen.
All right. There we go. Yeah, we have a presentation here that is normally about 20 minutes, so I'm going to cut this in half because I assume you're all going to get a copy of this presentation. The front end of this is more about who SLG is and our areas of specialization. We do already provide services through KRS 102 award, and where I'm going to dive in more detail to the recent cybersecurity award we just got, and then bring this around to the recent hack that you've all heard about and the types of things that we can do as a rapid response team to address that hack. And then some things we can do for the long term for you, and then open it up for questions. And I am Michael Phillips, and I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Solutions, and it's an honor to present to all of you. As I said, you're going to get this presentation so you can circle back, but we've been around for a while, done a lot of business for Illinois and the university, and we cover the full gamut of services in state and local government and have focused on education. We have specialization areas. The most important today is our security and compliance area that you're going to learn about. And a lot of you are already familiar that we're on KRS 102. So if you need any of these services, let us know. But we were honored to be selected with our partner Kivu Consulting to fill this role for incident response, security assessment, and digital forensic services. Only 5 companies responded to this RFP because this is kind of rarefied air. You need very specified, skilled people to do this work. And be aware that this contract vehicle is open to not only Illinois community, it's open to the University of Illinois and the ones in the IPHEC membership, but to all the colleges and accredited colleges, both in Illinois and nationally. So if you have a friend who is up in University of Wisconsin and you're talking with them and they say, hey, we just got hacked, well, they can piggyback off of this contract vehicle and bring us in. So do us a favor and let people know when you hear those things. We were qualified for good reason. We have serviced many universities. It's a long list. This is just some of them. And you'll find this interesting. Over the last 3 years, our team has conducted over 1,000 ransomware and cyber extortion cases. Now that's just ransomware and cyber extortion. We've done many other kinds of hacks, where we've been called in, but just so you know that this isn't our first rodeo. And these ransomware things are like shut you down things. And so we know how to come in and bring things back. And we also offer 24/7 monitoring services for several agencies. Our consultants aren't amateurs, 14 years of service, and 95% of them hold one of these or more of these certifications. So the bottom line is we've got it covered. Services we provide, we do security assessments and recommendations and roadmaps. If you're hacked, we do the breach hack rapid response actions, forensic research and mitigation, expert court testimony, managed services. We can help oversee your whole program, penetration and vulnerability testing. And then I mentioned the 24/7, and we can become your virtual security officer. And something that's interesting that we can do also is we can provide cyber insurance, which is a rapidly growing area to protect yourself against these hacks because there have been so many of them, and it exposes your organizations to risk. This is our pretty picture that shows that we cover all the bases. I will not go through all of this, but we do go through respond, detect, protect, educate, document, manage, and then help you with your overall security program. So let's get to what recently happened here. On December 13th, it became public that suspected Russian hackers had inserted malicious code into a service that provided software updates for the SolarWinds Orion product. And you may hear this referred to in different ways, like from Microsoft, it's the Sunburst, SolarGate, or FireEye calls it the UNC 2452. It's all the same thing. It's suspected that the code had been pushed to nearly 18,000 customers that have the Orion product. And that number is 3 weeks old. Now, SolarWinds, so you know what it is, and many of the universities have this, it really has tendrils into your infrastructure and monitors the performance of your network with tools. It centralized monitoring and management of your entire IT stack and infrastructure. And the bottom line here is this thing is tied to your IT infrastructure nervous system. So what's the potential impact of this hack? It could allow an attacker to compromise the server on which the Orion product runs. This malicious code acts like a backdoor to the client environment. It has the ability to transfer files and execute files, profile the system, reboot the machine, and disable system services. And this was a really sophisticated supply chain attack with a goal of being able to attack subsequent users of the software. So this is a nasty bug. So who's at risk for this? You're probably asking yourself, gosh, I wonder if it affects us. There are 300,000 customers worldwide that use SolarWinds. I mentioned the 18,000 that they already know are infected, but that's 3 weeks old. There's more than 425 of the US Fortune 500, all top 10 US telecommunication companies have been impacted, 5 branches of the US military, Pentagon, the NASA, and all top 5 of the US accounting firms. And just in case you think you were left out, there are hundreds of universities and colleges worldwide that have this hack. So who are you going to call for this? You could call Ghostbusters. It might be fun to watch them at work, but they don't have the tools or the skills to deal with this particular problem. Team SLG does. We're very experienced and ready to address this particular hack and any other hack that you might encounter. And I will say that we have already we've had this award for a short period of time, and we've already been approached by universities about this particular hack and are being engaged by one, and we will not say who because we always respect the confidentiality of our clients when it regards to hacks. We will never say that the Polywog University, we help them fight the death ray hack. We never give out that information because it's very sensitive, and so you can be assured of that. But do know that we are being engaged right now. So to do this, if you find out, that you've been hacked or you think you might have been hacked, that really requires a SWAT team, or we call it a rapid response team. And we're approved to provide these services. Now, one of the things that we do, if you're still determining if you might have it, we do a free initial assessment to come in and do a quick, do you have it or not, and give you some guidance on where to go next. If we find that you do have it, we have a methodology we follow where we initially collect and preserve all the evidence and all the verifications, all the logs, that we need. And then we go through our forensic analysis of the network data and of the source servers and workstations. And we gather all of that information so we can determine the best actions. And actually, if we know it's this particular hack, there's immediate steps that can be taken while we're doing this forensics to stop the bleeding. And that we are doing that now for some of the clients. We look for if you have any other malware that might be involved. And then we give you a final action report. Here's what we did, here's what we found, here's the steps that we advised you to take to stop it. And here's our recommendations going forward to see that it doesn't happen again. And then we have more long-term support. We can put in monitoring, so we can do rapid network triage and get ahead of these things, and threat monitoring 24/7. But that's after we've addressed the initial hack. So we're proud of this team, and it works, and they hit the ground and they make it happen. Now, once we stop these hacks, the goal really should be the best defense against cyber attacks and breaches is a comprehensive security program. And our team works with you to position them to proactively head off and mitigate potential security risks. So the idea is to get the defenses in place and get everything in so you don't have to worry about this anymore. So the steps we take for that, we come in as your partner for your security program. We do annual security assessments, annual risk assessments, and if you have any HIPAA related data, personal health information, you're required to do these annually. And then we set up your security roadmap and mitigation plan. And the roadmap and the mitigation plan are dynamic. As your situation changes, we may have to dive in here and update this thing and have some immediate mitigations that have to happen. Annual security training has to happen. There's the HIPAA training that's required, and any other security, we can do that and set that up for you. Work with you to make sure you got appropriate security governance in place in your organization. We can review, update, or even create, if we need to, security policies. We've had some people come to us and say, help, we don't have any HIPAA policies, and we write them for them and then help maintain them over time. And this is an exciting aspect. We can be your virtual security and privacy officer. If you say, gosh, this is just too much, we can't keep up with it all. We have a team of some of the best people in the world that can manage multiple clients to keep this economical to you, to handle all of these tasks that you have to do with a good security program. And the way we look at it, by the time we're done, nobody's getting in, nobody's going to take anything away. And if they try, they're going to get bit. And this is our mascot here, Buster, that kind of resembles how we look at it when we come in to attack this stuff. It's no nonsense. We're going to get it done, get in, get out, and then if you want, stay on as a partner. So the bottom line here is we've got the right people, the talent, and the tools and the right resources to address your rapidly evolving security needs. And with that, as Buster has treed this guy on the question mark, I will open it up for questions. Hopefully I didn't go too fast.
There are no questions at this point.
Thank you
And I
very
think
much.
there's a fact sheet that I think may get forwarded as well. It's a little one pager about the services we provide. Feel free to share that with anybody you think this applies to.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yep, and certainly if anyone wants to utilize those services, they can work with the Office of Procurement Diversity or directly with UIC Purchasing.
Thank you for the opportunity. Shauna, Gloria, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for coming today. There was a lot of information presented, so I hope you were able to absorb most or all of it. But remember that if you need to refresh on anything, this presentation has been recorded and is going to be available for you to review if you'd like to do that. I want to say please stay safe and well until our next meeting. We'll see you again on the 3rd of February. And of course, always remember to reach out to us if there's anything that we can do to help. Thanks for coming today. Bye.